We're learning the second Sikha in Chelek, Yutes, and Parshas Vayeilech on page 307. This shir is Leila Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rab Menashe Koltman. In Pasik, Vayikre Moshe le Yeshua Vayome Elov Gomer. Moshe Rabbeinu calls Yeshua and tells him, Chazak ve'amatz, strengthen yourself, ki ata tova yesa'am hazeh la'oretz, asher nishba Hashem, va'ata tanchileno oisam. You're going to come to Eretz Yisrael with the people, and you will give out the portions for the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. Stellt sich Rashi auf the Wörter, ki ata tova yesa'am hazeh. So Rashi brings these words from the Pasuk and says on his Mefarish, Areat teol im amo hadein. Because you are going to come into Eretz Yisrael with this nation. This is the Targum that Rashi is quoting here. And then Rashi explains, Moshe Amal Yeshua. Moshe told Yeshua, Zekeinim shebedoir yiu imach. The elders of the generation are going to be there along with you. Hakoil lefidaitan v'atzasan. And everything is going to be according to their opinion and according to their advice. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amal Yeshua. But what did the Eibishter tell Yeshua later in this week's parsha? Ki ata tavi es b'nei Yisrael esa'aretz asher nishbati lahem. You will be the one that will bring the Yidden to the land that I have promised them. Tavi al karcham v'cholu. Tavi means that you're the one that's going to bring them, even against their will. In other words, you're going to be the one that's going to be in charge and control of everything. While Moshe said tavoi, that you're going to come along with the people because you're not going to be the one in control, the Zekeinim, everything will be according to their opinion. The Eibishter says tavi, that Yeshua is going to be the one to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. Kedlekaman Siv Dalet, the continuation of the Rashi, will be quoted later in Siv Dalet. Was da schwer im Pasik, was zu lieb dem, muss Rashi herabbringen, dem Lashon von Targum und die ganze Arichis von sein Pirish. So what is the question in the Pasuk that Rashi is addressing? And Rashi brings the Targum, and then he brings the additional Arichis about what Moshe said, what the Eibishter says. Zagim Mefarshim, so the Mefarshim explain as follows. As Rashi kommt verämpfer in die Stire von den zwei Psukim, Rashi is answering the contradiction of these two Psukim that he's quoting here. The Gemara asks this question. It says here that you're going to come along with the Yidden. And then later in the pasuk it says Ki ata tavi, that Yeshua is the one that's going to be the leader. He's going to bring them to Eretz Yisrael. Und sein Empfer is, and therefore Rashi answers, Keteretz HaGemara, as the Gemara answers, as da tavoi, when it says that that Yeshua is going to come along with the Yidden, Retzech, was Moshe hat gesagt zu Yeshua. This is what Moshe said to Yeshua, that Zekeinim shebedoir yiu imach, that the elders, the Zekeinim, will be there to advise you and everything will be according to their opinion. Und dort wird erzählt, was der Eibishter hat gesagt zu Yeshua. Then later, it speaks about what the Eibishter said to Yeshua, which is Tavi al Karcham, that you will bring them even against their will. So that Rashi is basically quoting a Gemara from Sanhedrin to answer the contradiction of the two Psukim. The Pashtus is aber schwer zu lernen azoi in Rashi. But simply, to learn that Rashi, which Rashi's Pshuto Mikra, is coming and bringing the Gemara this contradiction, this answer, it's difficult to say so. Weil Aleph number 1. Demult volt Rashi gedarft onnoiben sein Pirish. Rashi should have began his explanation of the pasuk here with Hulu halanu oimer ki ata tavi. Rashi should have immediately said that this is the question I'm coming to address, that in another pasuk it says differently than here. Al derech wie schreibt in andere Erter, as you find in other places. When Rashi answers a contradiction, so he starts off that in another place it says so, and therefore there's a question here. Beis, Rashi hat gedacht bringen in dem Dibra Maschel, nor dem Wort Tavoi. The only word that's really the issue that Rashi is addressing, the word Tavoi. Oder Tavoi Esa'am, or even to quote the words Tavoi Esa'am, to come along with the people. Favos is a maitik, the alle Werter, ki ata Tavoi Esa'am azeh, because you're going to come with these people. So Rashi over here apparently is answering a more broader question in the context of this pasuk if he brings all these words. Now the main point there is, Eider, melernt and weiterdigen pasuk, ki ata tavi geimer, before you learn that pasuk later where it uses a different term, where it says tavi, is doch gar nicht schwer. There is no question that comes up here in this pasuk that we're learning now. So if so, hat Rashi gedarf sich stellen, nicht auf unser Pasik, nur auf dem Pasik, ki atta tovi goime, wenn se wird, ist tire. So where should Rashi bring up this question? Later, when you learn the pasuk later, when the contradiction becomes apparent, so there Rashi should address it and answer it. And the Rebbe points in the Ha'aris that we have similar, even here in this week's parsha, that Rashi addresses the contradiction when it comes up, not earlier on, or actually in Parshas Nitzavim. The beer in them. So to answer these questions, the Rebbe explains as follows. This is not yet the answer to all the questions the Rebbe has on Rashi, but this is just an initial answer to explain the general approach of Rashi, and then there'll be many more questions here, and the Rebbe will then give a more general beer for what's going on. So the beer of what Rashi is coming to answer is as follows. Mit meitig sein in dem Dibra Maschel, euch den Wort ki atatove geime, when Rashi brings the word ki, which means because you are coming to Eretz Yisrael, is Rashi madgish. So what Rashi is emphasizing with this is, as die Werte Ata Tove Yisrael Mazeh sind eine Sinnes Tam auf dem, was da steht früher im Pasuk Chazak v'amatz. This is an explanation. This is giving a reason of why you should strengthen yourself. Right? That's the beginning of the Pasuk. Vayikra Moshe Yeshua Vayome Elov Chazak v'amatz. Be strong. Moshe Rabbeinu is encouraging Yeshua. And then he's explaining to him why you should feel strong. Ki Ata Tove Yisrael Mazeh. Because you're coming with these people. So the question here is, mit was is Ata Tove Yisrael Mazeh, as Yeshua wird reingehen in Eretz Yisrael zusammen mit alle Yidden, and es in Tam of Chazak v'amatz. How is the fact that Yeshua is entering together in Eretz Yisrael, together with all the Yidden, just together with everybody? How is that a reason why Yeshua should feel strong? Bedeuchig wollten wir gekannt sagen. So now, bedeuchig we could say as follows. As es kommt bei Hemshech zu frier, the encouragement here is a continuation. The key is a continuation from what it says earlier. Moshe Rabbeinu is mechazek alle Yidden. In the pasuk before, in the psukim before, Moshe Rabbeinu encourages all Yidden, as reingehen in Eretz Yisrael, sollen sie sich nicht schrecken von Goyim Eile. So there he tells them they should not be afraid of all the Goyim there. Chisku, ve'imtzu, al tiru, ve'al tarzu, mipneim. They shouldn't be afraid of all the Goyim there. Is azoy beim Ansagen Yeshuan, as wird reingehen in Eretz Yisrael, Punkt wie alle Yidden. So here as well, when it says that he's going to enter into Eretz Yisrael exactly like all Yidden, along with them, is Moshe mechazik, as sich nicht schrecken vor Goyim Eile. So Moshe Rabbeinu is encouraging him that because you're coming together with all the Yidden, you also should not be afraid of all the Goyim. That's what the key refers to over here. You're coming with everybody, and you shouldn't be afraid of the Goyim. Aber der Pirish is adeiche gadol. This pirish is very difficult to actually put into the pasuk. From pasuk is mashma, as das is a spezielle chizuk, was is shayach blois Yeshua allein. It's clear from the pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking separately and specifically to Yeshua, and he's giving him a separate encouragement, and this is not a continuation of the chizuk that Moshe Rabbeinu is giving to the rest of the Yidden. So now because of this question, that it's not clear what the key is over here. What's the source of the chizuk for Yeshua? So one would think to say, even if it's with difficulty, but you would say, as the taich from Tavoi, da is Tavi. That maybe the word Tavoi here, even though usually it means that you come together with the Yidden, but maybe here the word Tavoi means Tavi, that you're bringing the Yidden. Du wirst sie hereinbringen in Eretz Yisrael. Und der Fahr dafür haben a chizuk. And that's why the Moshe Rabbeinu is coming and is encouraging him and is giving him the encouragement to be able to have the energy to bring the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. Al derech wie steht schon früher in Parshas Dvarim, as we find in another place in Parshas Dvarim, where it says, the Eibusha tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Oisai chazik, you should encourage Yeshua, kihu yanchilana es Yisrael, because he's going to be the one to divide the land and give the portions for the Yidden. So there we see that he has to be encouraged for this reason. So we would say that when it says over here, Tavoi, it really means Tavi, that he's going to be the one bringing the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu is encouraging him. Is bichdei zu shoyl zayin dem pirish. So first of all, in order to negate this pshat, is Rashi maitik dem lashon from Targum. So Rashi quotes the words of the Targum as the pirish haposhit Von Tovoi, von Ata Tovoi Yisa'amazeh meant that the simple meaning of you coming with this nation is Areat Te'ol im Amadein. Du wirst da reinkommen mit den Yidden. That you're going to enter into Eretz Yisrael along with the Yidden. Man is nit meitzi dem Wort Tovoi mipshutai. There's no reason to take the word Tovoi out of its simple pshat that he's coming into Eretz Yisrael along with the Yidden. So bleibt doch the Shaila. So if so, the question remains, was is the time in the Ata Tovoi Yisa'amazeh oifen chazak v'amatz? So if so, well, how is Ata Tovoi Yisa'amazeh, the fact that he's coming in together with all the Yidden, how is that a special reason why Yeshua is being encouraged to come into Eretz Yisrael? He's no different than everybody else that was already encouraged before. Is Rashi mamshech, therefore Rashi continues. Moshe Amal Yeshua Zekenim Shebedoir Yiu Imach. What Moshe is telling Yeshua, you're coming in with the people, and who are here in the people? The Zekenim Shebedoir. From them was the state, Ata Tovoi Es Ha'am Hazeh. You're coming in with these people, der These people was is gestanen far Moshe, that are standing right now in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. And as it was described already in the beginning of Parshas Nitzavim, that uberoisham zenen rasheichem, shivteichem, zikneichem, that the Yidden were all standing there, and at the head of all Yidden were the leaders, were the Zekenim. Is doch sicher as the Zekenim yiu imach. So therefore, take a look at the people that are standing here right now, and you'll see that there are the Zekenim here, and therefore the Zekenim will be along with you. You don't have to be worried about how are you going to manage to give all the Yidden their portion in the land. Because those Zekanim that are here in this nation that you see in front of you right now, they're going to help you. That's the chizuk of ki ata tovei yisa'amazeh. It's not referring to all the Yidden in general, but it's referring to the ha'amazeh, the way they were standing now. And there was a kneichem, shiftechem, the elders were right there, and Moshe Rabbeinu was pointing to them that they're going to be the ones helping you. So das heißt. So therefore what it means is as follows. The sibbe favos Yeshua darf haben chizuk. What's the reason why Yeshua needs to be strengthened and encouraged? Is val va'ata tanchileno isam. That's what it says in Parshas Devarim. The Eibusha tells Moshe Rabbeinu he needs to be encouraged because he's going to be the one dividing Eretz Yisrael. On Ata Tovei Yisa'amazeh. Here, when Moshe Rabbeinu actually encourages him, and it says Ata Tovei Yisa'amazeh, is atel fundim chizuk. This is the actual encouragement itself. That he's telling him, I'm giving you this assistance, you're going to see, you're going to have the Zekanim with you, and therefore you'll be able to do this. As Zekanim shebedar yiyu imach. So that's the general pshat in the Rashi over here. Rashi starts with the Targum, and Rashi brings up the pasuk later, where it says, or Rashi, before we get to the pasuk later, but Rashi brings up Tovoi, and not Tovi. Rashi wants you to understand that the pshat is dafke Tovoi, because otherwise you might think that the only way to explain the encouragement is by saying Tavi. So Rashi clarifies, no, the pshat is like the Targum, Tavoi, and the encouragement is that the Zekainu will be along with him, and therefore he's not alone. And therefore befashtein dem hemshech haloshem from Rashi, but now comes up many questions that the Rebbe will ask over here regarding the continuation of Rashi, where Rashi says, Zekainim shebedar yiyu imach. You're going to have these Zekainim along with you. And then Rashi adds, Hakoil lefidaitan vatsasan. Everything will be according to their opinion and their advice. Von dem was Rashi is ich nit mistapik mit Zekainim shebedar yimach. The fact that Rashi does not stop just by saying that the Zekainim will be there with you. On his Maisiv, Rashi adds even more, Hakoil lefidaitan vatsasan. Everything is going to be according to their opinion and advice. Is move on, so it's understood as the Zekainim, that these Zekainim, nit nor veln zeim helfen. Not only will they be there to assist him, nor alts vet getan werden loit zeye deye neitze. Everything is going to be according to their opinion and their advice. That says nit nor vet Yeshua, nit haben die einzige deye. It's not only that Yeshua will not have an opinion, he won't be the only opinion alone, he'll have to also seek the advice of the Zekainim and hear out their opinion as well. Not only that, nor adarab, die Zekainim will haben die ganze deye. The Zekainim are going to be the ones that will be fully in charge. They're going to have the only opinion, and everything will be according to their advice. That's what Rashi is adding with the words Hakoil lefidaitan vatsasan. It's tamua, so this is very difficult to understand. Aleph, from wann das Rashi in Pshute Shel Mikra? How does Rashi see this in the pasuk, in the pshat of the pasuk, that it goes so far? that not only will the Zakanim be there amongst the people to help him, but everything will be according to their opinion. Beis, Nachmer, not only that, in Gemara is the Lashon, the Gemara, which is the source of Rashi. So what does it say there? Atav HaZakanim shebedayir imam. You and the Zakanim in the generation with you. You're with them. The says Yeshua mit the Zakanim. Yeshua is together with the Zakanim. So it's not that they're completely in control and that's all with their opinion. It's Yeshua together with the Zakanim. When Rashi is Mishana, Rashi switches from what the Gemara says. As nit ze wollen sein gleich, not it's Yeshua along with the Zakanim, nor hakoil lefidaitan v'atzasan. Yeshua has to fully accept the opinion and the advice of the Zakanim. So why does Rashi go and change what the Gemara says? Gimel, another question there is, wie kann man sagen, as Moshe hat gegeben the Zakanim the ganze day? How is it even possible to say that Moshe is giving the Zakanim that they have the full control, everything is going to be according to their opinion, completely? B'shas, Moshe allein hat gebeten beim Eibishten in Parshas Pinchas. When it came the time when Moshe Rabbeinu was told that he's not going to lead the Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu asks of the Eibishter, Yifkei Hashem goyme ish ala Eida, that the Eibishter should appoint a man to be the leader of the people. On the Tzimach given Yeshua, and there we see that he gave over to Yeshua ba'ayin yafe, Yosef v'Yosef mimashen etztave b'shtei yadav. He gave him over with both hands the leadership that Yeshua should be able to lead the Yidden fully. Als Manik von Yidden, as a leader. Und in dem Pasuk Gufe steht, and right here, what does it say in this Pasuk? Va'ata tanchilena oisam. You're going to be the one to divide the portions in Eretz Yisrael. As Yeshua vat mancha zayin Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden. It's Yeshua that's going to divide the land in Eretz Yisrael for the Yidden. Heint wie teitsch Rashi, b'divrei Moshe, hakoil lefidaitan vatzasan. That Yeshua is totally not in charge, and everything he does is according to the opinion of the Zakanim. Hakoil. How could Rashi say such a thing? Weiter sagt Rashi. Now let's see what Rashi says in the continuation, how the Eibishter says that it's going to be different. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar Yeshua. What does the Eibishter say to Yeshua? Ki ata tovi es b'nei Yisrael el ha'aretz. You're going to be the ones that are going to lead and bring Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. Asher nishbati lahem. Tovi al karcha. You're going to bring them even against their will. Hakoil toli bach. Everything is dependent on you. It's all in your hands. Toil makel, take a stick, v'hachal kol kodon, and strike them on their skull. In other words, it's an expression that you decide what has to be done and get it done. Dabar echad lader, there's only one leader for the generation. V'lo shnei dabarim lader, and there's no two leaders in the same generation. So therefore, there's only one opinion. Yeshua will do everything completely himself. His own opinion, with him being totally in charge. Isn't it move on? So here in this continuation of Rashi, we have the following questions. Wie gerät fries Aleph, is Rashi mefarish nor das was is schwer in Pasuk Alasar. Rashi only explains what is necessary and is difficult to understand in the Pasuk right here. Was ist schwer da im Pasuk, was zu lieb dem, muss Rashi herabbringen, aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu amachulu, der Pirish im weitendigen Pasuk Yata Tovis. As we asked before, why is Rashi bringing this whole continuation of explaining the Pasuk later of Kiata Tovi, which is not relevant for the pshat of the Pasuk here? Beis, another question is, from Arichas Lashon Rashi, the whole lengthy words of Rashi over here. Tovi al Karcham, Hakel Tolibach, Toil Makel, Vahachal Kol Kodan. Is klar. It's very clear what Rashi is saying here is, as nit nor hat der Eibishter Shelel given an Hage von Hakoil Fidaitem Vatzasan. It's not only that the Eibishter is rejecting what Moshe Rabbeinu says, that everything should be with the opinion and the control of the Zakanim. Nor die Zakanim sollen nicht haben die ganze Day. So the Eibishter is rejecting that the Zakanim don't have the full charge, the full control, the full opinion. Not only is the Eibishter rejecting that, and even more so, und nicht nur sollen sie nicht bleiben beschavet zu Yeshua, oder akapane v'yoyetzim zu him. And not only is the Eibishter rejecting that they should not be maybe equal to him, that their opinion should matter as much as Yeshua, or maybe that they should at least be advisors to him. No, nachma, the Eibishter is rejecting even more. Die Zakanim sollen überhaupt nicht haben kein Deya. The Zakanim should have absolutely no opinion whatsoever regarding the bringing Yidden into Eretz Yisrael. The Eibishter is negating completely what Moshe Rabbeinu said, that the Zakanim will be fully in charge. They won't have any opinion whatsoever. Yeshua darf sich im Ganzen nicht rechnen oder afillen nicht beraten sich mit sie. He doesn't have to consider their opinion. He doesn't have to seek their advice at all. Toil makal v'hachal kol kodam. It's a pretty strong expression. You take a stick and strike them on their skull. Completely go and do what you have to, even if other people may not agree to you. Isn't it move on? So the question here is, Emes take, yes, it's true, as Rashi says, as Hayais, v'dabar echad lader, v'lo shnei dabarim lader. There's only one leader in a generation and not two. Is Yeshua the einzige dabar umanik von Yidden? So Yeshua has to be the only leader that makes the decisions. Aber, von wann it is the hechrech, als die Zikanim sollen nicht helfen? Well, what forces Rashi to say that we're completely taking the Zikanim out of the picture? And they can't be here to help Yeshua whatsoever in advising him, or their opinion does not matter at all. Where does Rashi take this from? By Moshe Rabbeinu Gufe, sind doch gewähnt die Shivim Zekanim. By Moshe Rabbeinu, in his leadership, he had the Shivim Zekanim assisting him. Was v'nosu itach b'maseh ha'am v'lo tisa ata levadecha, as the pasuk says, they'll carry the nation along with you, and you don't have to be alone. Was the fun is gedrungen, as azan hage is nit bestiret zum klal daber echad lader v'lishnei dabarim lader. So having the Zekanim assist Moshe Rabbeinu did not contradict the rule that there's only one leader and not two. Well, sof is Moshe Rabbeinu given the dabar v'sholit, because in the end of the day there is only one leader. Moshe Rabbeinu is the bottom line; he's the one that makes the decision. But there's no problem with having others that advise and assist. Heint vu gefindt Rashi the hechrech as by Yeshua is mushlul oich azan hoge. So where does Rashi have anything that forces him to say that by Yeshua this is completely rejected and he won't even have the Zekanim at all to be there to assist Yeshua in what he's doing? This is really the same question that Rebbe asked before in the opposite extreme. Moshe Rabbeinu's suggestion was that Yeshua will have zero opinion. It'll be totally in the control of Yeshua. In the Zekanim, that is. That's in that extreme. Over here, in the opposite extreme, where we see that the Eibishter said that it'll be different, so the Eibishter rejects Moshe Rabbeinu's idea completely, and that Yeshua will be completely alone, the only one to lead, and he won't have to consider the opinion or the advice of the Zekanim at all. Gimel, another question there is, was gitzu, the siyum from Pirush Rashi? So what does the end of Rashi add when Rashi says dabar echad lader v'lo shnei dabarim lader? In Pirush HaKosov, when Rashi says there's a rule that there's only one leader for a generation and not two, how does that add anything in the pshat of the pasuk? I mean, the facts that Rashi explains, we know what the pshat in the pasuk, what Moshe said, what the Eibishter said. So the facts we know. The basis of it, this general rule about one leader and not two leaders, why is that necessary to know for the pshat of the pasuk? Daled, the final question here is, what's the lashon v'loi shnei dabarim ladar? When Rashi says that there aren't two leaders in one generation. V'balt Rashi kum treilo zayin Zekanim, it seems like Rashi here is coming to negate and reject the idea that the Zekanim should assist Yeshua. So if so, Aleph hat gedacht sagen v'loi harbe oy chayetze bezeh dabarim ladar, and there can't be many leaders in the generation. We're talking about 70 additional people to help Yeshua. Beis, on the other hand, regarding this situation, if it's from here that the Eibishter rejected the fact that the Zekanim can't help him, so how can we learn from here that you can't have two leaders in the same generation? Maybe it's only if you have 70 or 71 that are together leading the generation, that's an issue. Maybe two together to lead, maybe that is something that's possible. And more specifically, as min gefind, don't we find this before, where it says, "Hu Aaron Moshe asher amalahem hoitziu es bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim al tzevaisam," that Moshe and Aaron together collaborated in taking the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. So it seems like two together to lead Yidden is okay. So how is Rashi saying that from here we learn v'lo shnei dabarim ladar? So we have many questions here in the Rashi, as you can see. This whole arichas of Rashi here, and specifically the extremes that Rashi explains. The difference between what Moshe suggested will be with Yeshua and what the Eibishter suggests. Moshe says, "Hakoil ifidaitan," and then the Eibishter says the opposite extreme. No, toil makel v'hachal kadkadan, totally balkarchach. Don't consider their opinion whatsoever. So what's going on over here? Where does Rashi take all of this from, and why is Rashi bringing all of this up in the beginning before the question comes up in the pasuk later? So the answer here is as follows. Der toyar ha'am hazeh. When the pasuk says that you're going to come along with this nation, the term is nit Hashem ha'maylef in Yidden. This is not a name that expresses the good quality of Yidden. If so it comes out, as mit die Werte, ata tovo yesa'am hazeh, when Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Yeshua, you're going to come with these people, the nation, meint der Pasuk as Yeshua wird sein zusammen euch mit die Pchusim shebi Yisrael. So this means that Yeshua is entering into Eretz Yisrael and is coming along even with the lower level of people amongst Yidden. That's what the word ha'am means. Leidach, on the other hand, von dem was steht ha'am hazeh, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was telling him, pointing at these people the way they're standing here today, is move on as the Pasuk meint dem ganzen Am. It doesn't refer just to which hints or it refers to the lower element of Klal Yisrael, but it's referring to all of these people that are standing here today, Oich upshite the Eimdim Bereish, including and obviously even more so those that are at the head of them, the Zekanim, Kanal, as the Rebbe said before, Ha'am Hazeh indicates that Moshe Rabbeinu is pointing to the Zekanim that are the head of the Yidden. The Rebbe learned Rashi as the Pasuk will sagen zwei Sachen. So therefore, by this expression of Ha'am Hazeh, on one hand saying that Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua that is coming in with the lowest element of Klal Yisrael. That's what Ha'am means. On the other hand, it says Hazeh, pointing to all of Yidden, including the head of them, which are the Zekanim. So there are 2 points here. Aleph, one point is, from them, was steht Ha'am Hazeh, these people, Oster, Mare be'etzba, Moshe Rabbeinu, as if it's pointing to look at these people the way they're standing here today, Upashit as the Zekanim, and obviously this refers to the Zekanim as well, Leren bin Nareis. So from this we learn, as we said before already, as the Zekanim shebedoir yiu imach. This term of Ha'am Hazeh is that the Zekanim will be there along with you, to assist you. That's what you learn from the term Hazeh. From then, was the Pasuk is Madgish Ha'am, lernt man. But on the other hand, the fact that the Pasuk uses the term this nation, and not the usual Lashon of Bnei Yisrael, so we're using a Lashon that refers to the lower element of the people, lernt man, as Yeshua wird sein in einem, as Am, euch mit die Pchusim von Yidden, that Yeshua is going to be together with the lowest element of Yidden. So, wie is this meglach? So how is this possible? On one hand, we're saying that Hazeh means that he's going to be together with the Zekanim. On the other hand, it says Ha'am, which means that he's going to be together with the lowest element of Klal Yisrael. Is Rashi Masber, so therefore Rashi says, HaKoil lefi daiton vatsasan. What the Pasuk is saying is, yes, the Zekanim are going to be with you, but the Zekanim are going to be totally in control. Everything is going to be according to their opinion. The Zekanim wollen haben die ganze Deye. The Zekanim are going to be the ones that are going to have the full and total control. It's going to be their opinion. U'b'meile is Yeshua in them, Deye ve'etze gleich mit Shara. And it's in that sense that Yeshua is coming together with the simple folk, with the plain people of the nation, that he's coming together with Ha'am. So it's because the Pasuk uses this term, Ha'am, and then it says Hazeh. So on one hand we see that Yeshua is going to be with the Zekanim. So what does it mean he's going to be with the Zekanim? That the Zekanim are going to advise him and tell him exactly what to do. And therefore, Yeshua is really going to be together with the Am. He's going to be just a simple person like everybody else. His decision will not matter whatsoever. That's where Rashi takes this idea from, that HaKoil, that he's going to be totally in control under the Zekanim, because otherwise he's not equal, he's not together with Ha'am, with the simple people that he's coming along with them. Wie stimmt das? Was HaKoil lefi daiton vatsasan? But now the question becomes, how does this, that everything is going to be according to the opinion and the advice of the Zekanim, how does this go along with the fact, mit dem, was Moshe hat Seimich gewen Yeshua als Manik von Yidden, that Moshe Rabbeinu gave over the leadership to Yeshua, as we quoted before from Parshas Pinchas. So Bavarat is Rashi b'Pirush Risham. So if you take a look in what Rashi says there, what exactly the leadership of Yeshua consists of, so you see that what Moshe Rabbeinu did over here is not inconsistent with what Moshe Rabbeinu appointed Yeshua before as a leader. So what does Rashi say there? When it says there that Moshe Rabbeinu asks the Eibishter, you should appoint a leader that should go out ahead of the Yidden, is Rashi Mefarish. Not the way it is by the kings amongst the nations. They sit in their house, in their palace, and they send out their armies to go fight in war. That is Elamai over here. There should be a leader that should go out ahead of the Yidden in the wars. Das heißt, so what do we see from this Rashi? Moshe Rabbeinu had gebeten for the Yidden am Melech was als führen la Milchama. What Moshe Rabbeinu is asking for is a leader that should lead them in the army. Euch hat Moshe schon angesagt, and also Moshe Rabbeinu already said before, as Yeshua yenchilana Eretz Yisrael, that Yeshua will be the one that will divide the portions of Eretz Yisrael for the Yidden. Chalukas Haaretz, dividing the land, was kumpe hemshech to kibush Haaretz. But Mulchama, after you conquer the territory, Eretz Yisrael, then Yeshua will be the one to divide the land. However, according to Rashi, what's not mentioned here is, as Moshe soll haben gebeten, auf a Manig, was soll auf sie annehmen Masse ha'am. It doesn't mention here anything about a leader that should take upon himself to carry the people. In what sense? Die Anhage in Zeyere innerliche inyanim. To take care of the matters amongst Yidden themselves, all their issues amongst themselves, not in war and not in the territory to divide it, but just their own personal matters that he has to take care of. That is never mentioned in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu when he came to appoint Yeshua as the leader of Yidden. So what's going to be with all of the interior things that's amongst Yidden themselves? Who's going to be the leader for this? So even a child learning this has no question. So just like it was by Moshe Rabbeinu himself. The 70 Zekanim were there assisting Moshe Rabbeinu in dealing with all the issues amongst Yidden. Hat Moshe gerechnet, als wollen das weiter tun allein. So Moshe Rabbeinu figured that after he passes away, there won't be a major gap in leadership regarding this. The Zekanim are still going to continue. But a king that goes ahead of the people to lead them in war, that you need to replace his leadership because there can only be one individual. And if them at Moshe gebeten, Ishale Eda, that there should be a person that should be appointed, and that Tzemach given Yeshua, and he gave over that leadership fully and solely only to Yeshua. Ubemele is kein stir in it. So now we understand that there's no contradiction here. From them, was Moshe had frie gebeten, Ishale Eda, that before Moshe Rabbeinu says there should be one leader upon the Yidden. To them, was Dog gesagt, to this that here, what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? That Yeshua has no control and everything is going to be according to the advice and the opinion of the Zekanim. Because he immediately, even over here in this pasuk itself, he divides exactly the different parts of leadership here. When it comes to dividing the territory, is not Ata. That's Yeshua alone. Nobody is assisting them with this. And Vayeilech, when he's going, the Eibishter goes along with him, which refers to going out in war, is So again, Yeshua is the only one, the leader that goes in war, and he leads the Yidden. And the Rakoil is a chutzanal, and everybody else is outside of this. Nobody else is included or part of this leadership. On the other hand, their masa ha'am. Sorry, let me read this again. Und der hakoil is a chutzanal. Der masa ha'am. The hakoil. This is the expression that the Rebbe says here, hakoil, referring to the hakoil if he died on vatsasan. What does hakoil mean that the Zekanim are going to support and advise and everything will be according to their opinion? That's besides the war and the dividing of the territory. It's the masa ha'am. That's leading the Yidden in their internal matters, regarding with themselves, their own issues. And they're going to support, and not only support, they're actually going to be in full control and advise Yeshua and tell him exactly what to do. This is also part of the encouragement, as the Rebbe began there, that it says ki. That ki means that he's coming to encourage him. So this is part of the encouragement that Moshe is giving Yeshua. You don't have to be worried about the internal matters of Klal Yisrael. This might drag you down. The internal matters of Klal Yisrael, that's the main hardship, to deal with the issues amongst Yidden. So Yeshua was concerned about that. Das Valentan, the Zekanim, that will be taken care of the Zekanim, and you'll be free to lead the Yidden, to conquer the land, to divide the territory. So this is the encouragement that Moshe Rabbeinu is giving him. So we have it very clear, divided into the different parts of the leadership here. There's the leadership in war and conquering the land, and then there's the leadership in the internal matters. And in that, hakoil ifidaitan v'atzasan, and in that sense, the Yeshua comes in like one amongst, together with the Yidden, amongst even with the simple layman people that come into Eretz Yisrael. Das allein is aber nit glatik. However, when you read even the pasuk right here, even before you come to the pasuk later that Rashi brings up, just reading this over here is not yet understood. Weil bei Ben Chamish Lemikra legt sich nicht, als Yeshua hat übergenommen die Anhage von Moshe, again, weil bei Ben Chamish Lemikra legt sich, als Yeshua hat übergenommen die Anhage von Moshe in alle Praten. Because the child reading the pasuk right here, it's clear to him that Yeshua did take over the leadership of Moshe, not only regarding the war, not only regarding conquering and dividing Eretz Yisrael, but in all matters. He takes over leadership in every aspect. Nit nur beneged zum Milchama v'chalukah. Und befragt, als der Rebbe hat geheißen Moshe Rabbeinu, nicht nur zu seimlich sein Yeshua. The Rebbe tells Moshe clearly not only to give over the leadership to him, nor oich v'nasata mehoitcha olav l'man yishmu kaladas b'nei Yisrael. Give over from the revelation, the light that Moshe Rabbeinu has, give it over to Yeshua, so that the Yidden should listen to him. Und der Rebbe hat gesagt, der Rebbe says to Moshe, v'tzivisa oisai al Yisrael, you should command him to be the leader over Yidden, and you should explain him, warn him what this is about. Da, shetarchanenem, sarvanenem. You should know that Yidden are very difficult people. They refuse to listen, and they can complain, and so on. So what do you see from here? Was from them alam is mashma. So from this it seems clear, as Yeshua hat euch ibgenommen masa on, that when he's being appointed to be the leader, he's taking over the leadership in all aspects, even in the internal matters, even to lead the Yidden. As we see here, this is what the Eibishter is telling Moshe Rabbeinu to explain him, what this consists of. So, even just reading this pasuk over here, the question would remain. The question comes up not because of a stir of any pasuk later. Right here we have a question. Could this really be true? That the leadership of Yeshua is divided in this way? So So what we're going to answer, and this is a deichik, we'll have to say, as we bald, as is given, nor daiton vat sosam from the zikanim. In the end of the day, true, the zikanim, it's going to be everything with their opinion and their advice. Aber, the asiyah b'poyel had geton Yeshua. But who's the one that implements all of everything that has to get done, even regarding the internal matters amongst Klal Yisrael? So that Yeshua has to do. So the fact that he's the one that's implementing everything, that's considered to be a certain level of leadership that he has even in the internal matters of Klal Yisrael. That's what you can say b'deichik. Is Rashi shailel dem deichik. So here Rashi comes and rejects this pshat. That's a squeeze. It's not a good pshat. Und is mamshich as das was es steht. Tova yesa'am hazeh. When it says here that he's coming along with the people, as a kainim shebedari yiyu imach and akoil if yidaitam va'atzasan, and that Yeshua is just like everybody else, because everything is according to the opinion of the Zekanim, is blois was Moshe hat gesagt. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu said at this point here. But the Eibishter says, no, it's going to be different. As vet anfiren euch mit masa ha'am. That yes, Yeshua will be the full leader in all aspects, not only regarding war or dividing the land, but also regarding the internal matters of Klal Yisrael. Yeshua will be the leader of Yidden. So therefore, it fits with what we learned earlier, that Yeshua, the Eibishter intended him to be the leader in all aspects. So now, So now to understand better what exactly it is that the Eibishter intended that Yeshua should come and be the leader of Klal Yisrael in all aspects, which again, this is the point that even a Ben Chamish Lemikra knows and understands, even just reading the pasuk here. So what is the difference between the expression of Tavoi and Tavi? Is zwischen die zwei Psukim voran noch a Shinui. So, in addition to the difference between the two words of Tavai and Tavi, there's also another difference, which is Dashtei Ta'amazeh. Over here it says that you're going to bring this nation. Und dorten es Bnei Yisrael. And later when it says Tavi, it uses the expression Bnei Yisrael. Was Bnei Yisrael is Hashem HaMayla von Yidden. That's the name that expresses the quality of who the Yidden are. They're the Bnei Yisrael. Nit via Amazeh kanal sifei. As opposed to the term Amazeh, the term just means the people, the nation, that does not express the good quality of Yidden. So that's another difference, which Rashi is also maitik in his Piddush here, right? Over here it says Ki ata Tavi es Amazeh, and Rashi brings that later it says Tavi es Bnei Yisrael. On the phone, was the pasuk is Mishana from Friya. So from the fact that the pasuk changes. By Tavi steht Bnei Yisrael. When the pasuk speaks about the leadership of Yeshua, the way the Eibishter intended it to be, that it should be the leaders in all aspects, here the pasuk adds Bnei Yisrael. Nemt Rashi arais. So from this, Rashi tells us that we see, as the mit is memaisef nachaninyan, that here you see another point. Nit nor vet Yeshua onfine b'masa from dem Klal Yisrael. That not only will Yeshua be the one to lead all the Yidden and carry the nation, the people, nor vet euch shoylet sein of the Anshi HaMayla zwischen Yidden. He's also going to be leading and rule over the higher level amongst Yidden. The Bnei Yisrael, in other words, even the greatest amongst Yidden, the Zekanim, even to rule over them. That's what the Bnei Yisrael here is coming to add. The extent, how far the leadership of Yeshua is going to go, that not only Tavi as Ha'amazeh, the same expression that was said before, but Tavi, that your leadership will be even over Bnei Yisrael, even over the Zekanim. So now this is the source of what Rashi says. Is nit nor was Tavi al Karcham Hakoil Tolibach, that not only are you bringing them even against your will, because everything is dependent on you. You're the leader of Yidden in all aspects. No nitvi by Moshe, wo die Zekanim nasu itach b'masa'am. By Moshe, so he carried the matters of Yidden along with the Zekanim, or the Zekanim that is, assisted Moshe Rabbeinu. Nor alt vet zayin abhängig in Yeshua. The pasuk here is saying everything will be completely dependent on Yeshua, right? But even more than this, nor nachmer. What we see over here when it says Tavi es b'nei Yisrael, what it's telling us is Toil makol v'hach al kol kodam. Take a stick and strike it on their heads. Die Shlita, the word makol, which represents the control for Yeshua as if the Zekanim vi oif ala under the Yidden. He's going to have that control and leadership over the Zekanim to the same extent, in the same level, like he rules over all the Yidden. Zekanim vol netabim kein deye ve'etze b'masa ha'am. They'll have absolutely no opinion whatsoever when it comes to leading the Yidden. In other words, don't think that Yeshua, there'll be different levels. Yeshua's leading the simple people. And the Zekanim, they'll have somewhat of an opinion, even if Yeshua doesn't have to listen to them, but nevertheless, their opinion matters to some degree. They're not exactly the same like everyone else. No, the pasuk is saying, Tavi, that level of leadership of Yeshua, that he brings them and controls them, just like it applies to everyone else, on the same level, and to the same extent, it applies to the Bnei Yisrael, which refers to the Zekanim, that are the ones that are the Maila of Yidden, the ones that are on a high level. So that's where Rashi takes this extreme change from. It's not only the difference between Tavi and Tavoi, but it's also the fact that before it says Tavi, so again, before it says Tavoi as Ha'amazeh, and now it says Tavi as Bnei Yisrael. So therefore we know that Moshe Rabbeinu's idea was that Yeshua comes in together with the simple people, with Ha'amazeh, and therefore the Zekanim are fully in charge as far as advising and their opinion goes. On the other hand, when the Eibusher that is says Tavi, it says Tavi as Bnei Yisrael. So this is the extreme opposite. That Yeshua will be the one totally in control, or even over the Zekanim, to the same extent that he controls the rest of Klal Yisrael. But now, if this is so, it comes out as the Anhaga from Yeshua is punkt auf a kerter wie Anhagas Moshe. Yeshua's leadership is totally opposite of the way Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership was. By Moshe Rabbeinu haben die Zekanim mitgeholfen, b'masa'am. By him, as we mentioned before, the Zekanim helped along with the internal matters of Yidden. And by Yeshua haben sie gar kein Dei nicht gehabt. And by Yeshua, not only didn't they help, they're absolutely nothing. They're just the same like everybody else. Yeshua controls everybody equally. It's not glattig, so this is not easy to understand. Yeshua is doch Misharis Moshe. We know Yeshua is just a servant of Moshe. But lo yamish metoich ha'oil, he never went away from the tent of serving Moshe Rabbeinu. Upnei Moshe, Kipnei Moshe kechama, the face of Moshe Rabbeinu shines like the light of a sun. Upnei Yeshua kalavana, and Moshe Rabbeinu and Yeshua, that is compared to the light of the moon. And this is something that Rashi already quoted before in Parshas Pinchas. Was oira von oira chama? Where does the light of the moon come from? It's a reflection of the light of the sun. So if so, wie kommt es, als sein Anhager soll sein verkehrt wie der Anhager von seinen Reben Moshe Rabbeinu? So how could it be that the way he leads Yidden should be so different from Moshe Rabbeinu? Yeshua, being the Misharis of Moshe, never went away from the tent of Moshe, and he received the light from Moshe, and nevertheless his Anhager is going to be completely different than Moshe. Of them is Rashi Mamshech, so therefore Rashi here continues and says, there's one leader for a generation, and not two leaders of the generation. So the Rebbe pointed out, Rashi here says Shnei. Rashi does not say many. If Rashi would be referring to the Zekanim, Rashi should have said, and there aren't many leaders. Rashi says Shnei. Why? Because the myth is Rashi Shoylol b'derech remez. What Rashi is negating here by saying this, and Rashi's hinting to you, nit nor the shlita from the Zekanim. Not only that the Zekanim will not lead together with Yeshua, nor reich von Moshe Rabbeinu. That in the leadership of Yeshua, there'll be nothing of the leadership of Moshe contributing to his leadership. What does this mean? B'chaye Moshe, in the lifetime of Moshe, is Yeshua given Meshoris Moshe. He was a servant, und in ganzen übergegeben zu Moshe und Moshe's Anhage, and totally dedicated to Moshe and to the way Moshe's leadership was. B'shas habes kommt die Zeit, as Yeshua soll werden der Mannig. But when the time comes that now Yeshua has to be the leader, Hotschein can ordnet der derech und Anhage von Moshe Rabbeinu. So the way and the style of the leadership that it was by Moshe Rabbeinu is not relevant anymore. Bisman Yeshua darf man sich führen, wie es traktois mit Zadinyonim von Yeshua. Yeshua, now in his generation, the leadership that's demanded and is required now has to be the way it has to be in this generation of Yeshua. Every generation is different. Warum? Oib Yeshua. That's Chfirin, wie die Anhage von Moshe. If Yeshua, his leadership will just follow in the same style the way it was by Moshe, so then if you think about it, you really have over here, even in the times of Yeshua when he's leading alone, but in essence, you really have two leaders here. Yeshua und Moshe, was Yeshua geht in sein Derech. It's Yeshua leading, but he's not leading with his own style and with what's required for his generation. He's leading with the style of Moshe Rabbeinu from the previous generation. So therefore, it's impossible to have two leaderships in the same generation. That's what Rashi is hinting to. The Shnei refers to Moshe, the leadership continuing into the leadership of Yeshua. There's only one leader for the generation and not two. Is the Anhage von Yeshua anders wie Moshe's Anhage. So therefore, every generation is different. Every generation has its leader. Moshe hat übergegeben, durch was zahlte a Teil von Masse zu den Zekanim. In the time of Moshe, so part of the leadership was shared and was given over to the Zekanim. Aber Yeshua darf zu say nit ankommen. But Yeshua's style of leadership is different, and he does not need to use and have the help of the Zekanim at all. And Adar Rebbe concludes and answers the question, but we find before when Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, so there was a collaboration between Moshe and Aaron to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. So we see that you can have two together. Und das, was bei Yetzias Mitzrayim is given, Aaron and Moshe, the fact that by Yetzias Mitzrayim you had both together, Aaron and Moshe, Kedleil Sif Dalet, is weil dort is nicht given an Inyan von Daber Ladar. There we're not dealing with a leader for the generation. And that was only one, it was only Moshe. Nor Eisfiren Ashliches Muduyekes Eichenire Pratim von Eisfiren Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That's a very specific mission, and every detail is precise, where you have to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, and there are different details that this consists, and part of it was for Moshe, and part of it was for Aaron. But that was a specific shlichus within the generation. But the leadership of a generation is only one. So there's the Moshe Rabbeinu and there's the Yeshua in his generation, and therefore it's a completely different leadership that it does not take the style of leadership from Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is the conclusion of the beer in the pshat of what Rashi is saying here. Rashi is clarifying the pshat of Yeshua's leadership in Eretz Yisrael, the way Moshe Rabbeinu envisioned it, the way the Eibishter says that it should be. Moshe Rabbeinu envisioned the leadership of Yeshua to sort of be split. As far as the wars and conquering the land, that should be in the total leadership of Yeshua, but then the internal matters of Klal Yisrael, that should be completely in the control of the Zekanim. And in that sense, Yeshua just comes along with the people, as it's mashma in the pasuk, ha'am hazeh, just with the simple people. The Eibishter sees the leadership of Yeshua completely differently. That Yeshua is the full and total leader, and not only that, Tavi as Bnei Yisrael, even the Zekanim, he has the full control and leads them the same way he leads the rest of Klal Yisrael. And to the point that even the style of leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu is something that Yeshua doesn't take from. He has his own new way of leadership for his generation. Von jener Shalteira in Pirish Rashi. So now the deeper aspect in Rashi according to Chassidus. Steht in Chassidus, so it says in Chassidus, as in Yeshua zene faran, zwei madreges. There are two levels in Yeshua. Aleph, v'yer is misharis and mekabel from Moshe. When he's a servant and he receives from Moshe, so he's together along with Moshe. Beis v'eris la'atzma. And then Yeshua and his generation for himself. Noches talkas Moshe, after Moshe passes away. Was dan is a beginnis narva katnas. So then, because he's not in the presence of Moshe and he's not together with Moshe, so here he's considered to be nar katnas on a lower level, and much less than what Moshe was. So now, seemingly, after Moshe passes away, Yeshua he's not in the presence of Moshe, so then he's not at all on the same level. But there's a big advantage to Yeshua when he was later alone in his generation, and then when he was nar katnas. As the pasuk says, Kinar Yisrael und dafke defar vayaveyu. The Yidden are referred to as a young lad, and it's because of that there's a tremendous love that the Eibishter has for Yidden. Weil dafke in the minium von nar v'katnus is faran dem bittel v'kabbalah sel malchus shemayim. It's specifically the nar and katnus, that youthfulness, in other words, in the sense of not having your own opinion and thinking things through on yourself, but just having a full bittul to the Eibishter, that's more powerful. Mer v'in der aveda mitzad gadlus b'moyach v'leiv. Gadlus refers to the maturity of heart and mind, thinking and feeling yourself. Nar and katnus refers to an absolute bittul where there's no seichel, no midas, there's nothing of the person that's included, that's involved in this bittul. Und der Far is dafke in dem da der Vayeilech von atzmusa yisbarach. Vayeilech refers to the essential love that comes from the very essence of the Eibishter himself. Und da ist der Chelek. So now we can understand that here is the difference, zwischen the zwei psukim, between the two styles of leadership, what was suggested by Moshe Rabbeinu, and then what the Eibishter says afterwards. Ata tovayes ha'amazeh is v'Yeshua is makabel from Moshe. When it says in the beginning that Yeshua comes in together with the people, this is Yeshua that was a recipient from Moshe Rabbeinu there together with Moshe. Umitzad, madreges Moshe, is their inyan as Zekanim. So on the level of Yeshua being along with Moshe, so the Zekanim, which is Shekana Chachma, the wisdom of Torah and so on, which is an Aveda Shal Pitam V'das. That Aveda al Pitam V'das, the Aveda of the Zekanim, is significant and matters and is helpful and is something that Yeshua can rely on. But then, Ata Tovi as Bnei Yisrael, then later when it says that you're going to be the sole leader of Yidden, Zen Divrei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshua. This is the Eibishter himself speaking to Yeshua. Mitzad Mailas HaBitl from Yeshua. So this is Yeshua that's in the next generation after Moshe Rabbeinu's Estalkus. So here this is Yeshua's bittul alone, Nar Yisrael Vayaveyu. So here this bittul comes from Yeshua on his own level, umitzadem bittul shalamayla mitam v'das, because of this very deep bittul that comes from Kabbalah soil, that's higher than any reason or logic. So here he doesn't at all need to rely on these zekanim that represent chachma, seichel, and so on. Yeshloimar, Abdas is Eich Merumiz, and then Chiluk from the Oisius zwischen Tovoi and Tovi. This is also hinted in the difference, the two words of Tovoi and Tovi, besides there being a different translation, whether you're coming along with the people or you're leading the people, but there's also the difference in the letter of the two words. Tovoi is Metavav, and Tovi Metayud. So there's a difference between the letter Vav and Yud. Havav Meire ala Amshacha Mumayla Lamata. Quoting from the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, Vav refers to like the shape of the letter, which comes from above, extending downward. So it refers to Amshacha, bringing the Amshacha down in the world. Was Hamshacha is Chutz V'netzim. Bringing it down is drawing down the revelation from above, outside the source, outside the essence of the Eibishter. So therefore, the Vav, Tavai, refers to a level of leadership that's more limited. That's a level where the Seichel and the Zekanim are significant. On an Aveda is thus the Aveda Shal Pitam V'das. This refers to an Aveda, and in this case, the leadership, which is with reason and logic. Wo man darf ankommen zu den Zekanim, was hitten, als der Amshacha soll sein, soll kommen, b'makom aroi. So here on this level, so because the connection of the Eibishter is limited, so you need the Zekanim, you need the Seichel and the Chachma, the Tam V'das of the Zekanim, to make sure that the leadership and the Aveda remains properly. Hayud, on the other hand, what's the Yud? So again, quoting from the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, Hayud, Shehi, Bechines, Nekuda Levat. The Yud is just a point. Was weist of Bittel. The letter Yud refers to Bittel. So this Yud, which is absolute bittul, and the Rabbi points out, even though in other places in the Ha'ara it says that it refers to Chachma, but nevertheless over here we're referring to bittul even higher than Chachma, the absolute bittul in the point of the Yud. And it's in this Aveda, darf man it ankommen to the Zekanim. Here, you don't have to rely at all on any of the Zekanim, on any of the Chachma. V'yaderabba, on the contrary, mitzad derm yud, wird aufgetan euch in the Zekanim. So over here, this yud, not only you don't need the Zekanim, but you could actually affect and elevate the Zekanim. That inyan from bittul, you can elevate the Zekanim from their level of Chachma and bring them higher to a level of bittul. And here the Rebbe teaches this beautifully into the words of Rashi, Tavi al korcham, tel makel v'hach al kot kodam. That the leadership of Yeshua with the stick, which represents the leadership, the bittul and the Kabbalah soil, and you strike them on their skull. In other words, referring to kot kodam, their seichel, their tam v'das. That the bittul of Yeshua is the leadership with that level of bittul is so powerful that he affects and he elevates even the chachma of the Zekanim to a higher level. From the Hayrois, Benegei, Lepayel, from them Pirish Rashi. So from the lessons that we can take from this Rashi is B'shas memont, in heintige Zeiten. So when we demand today in these times, as jeder muss abgeben Zeit für Fotzes HaTeire v'Yadus Bechlal. Everybody must give time, dedicate time to spread Yiddishkeit, Teire and Yiddishkeit in general, b'miyuchad, and specifically in the Aseres HaMivtzayim HaYiduim, and specifically to take from your time for the 10 Mivtzayim known of the Rebbe. And here in Order 63, the Rebbe brings all the Mivtzayim. I'm not sure if there's anywhere else in Lekutei Sichos that it is this way. As das Alt darf sein durchgenommen mit Yefutzam and Esecha Chutza. And all of this, to spread the Yiddishkeit, should all be permeated with really spreading the springs of Chassidus outward. There are those that argue, as a Malikederis is not given as an Anhage. In previous generations, this was not what was demanded. This was not the main focus. In friedige Deires hat man sich nicht gekocht bei Öfen Kezen Ahavas Yisrael. In previous generations, the koch, the fervor, and the involvement in Ahavas Yisrael was not demanded the way it's being demanded now. Und wie bald, als bis die letzte Jahre, wenn der Rebbe der Schweres gekommen in Amerika, is nicht gewend die Anhage. So since, until the latest years, when the friedige Rebbe came to America, this was not the behavior, this was not what was demanded. Wie kommt es, als man soll anheben einführen neue Aveda? So why is it that now there's a new Aveda, new things that are being demanded? If them enfit men, so the answer is dabar echad lader v'lo shnei dabarim lader. One leader for a generation and not two leaders. Es kann Tage sein, as in friedige Deires, hat man nicht gedacht ankommen zu Azah Aveda. It could be that in previous generations this was not necessary. Aber in unser Day, but now in our generation, it's different. Ubedugme von dem Maime Vayros Chazal, and similar to the statement and the instruction of Chazal that say, as wenn man is gekommen le Bavel, when they arrived to Bavel, when Rav came to Bavel, Val derech zel Bavel bizman. Bavel does not only mean in a specific place in the world, but also in a certain time period. Bikka matzah, and you find a breach in something in Yiddishkeit is v'gada bagada. So for that time period and for that location, you have to make different fences. There's a different anhage that's required. Und der Rebbe, der Nossi, sagt, as in heintige Zeiten is a hechrich zu äußig sein in Afatzes am Yonis Chutza. And therefore today in our times, the Rebbe says that it's a must, that everybody has to take from his time to spread Yiddishkeit and Chassidus outward. Und noch mehr, b'igeres HaKedesh HaMefursemes from Baal Shem Tov. So the truth is that this is already something that was publicized and known even from the Baal Shem Tov already. As in them is Toli B'yis HaMashiach. That in this Aveda of spreading Chassidus, this is what the arrival of Mashiach depends on. Darfen sich führen, leiten derech, von dem Dabar und Manik von dem der. So therefore, even if you're right that in previous generations it was not required, it doesn't matter. But we have to follow the heroes of the Rebbe in our generation. As jeder, was is in dem der, darf ton in der Aveda, everybody living in our times must get involved in this work of spreading Chassidus, und durch dem is ka'asi mar do malke Mashiach bekarev mamish, and this will bring the arrival of Melech HaMashiach speedily in our times.